Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us all, and welcome to our first Hot Topic Forum for 2026. On the cards today, we have feral cat management, kind of cross-sector challenges, successes, practice, and technology. So firstly, I'd like to begin the session by acknowledging that I am coming to you from beautiful Wajak Noongar Butcher. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And I would like all participants to acknowledge what country you're calling in from on the chat today. So I'd like to acknowledge some Wallen committee members that we have with us today, including Monty House, who's chair of Gillami, and Julian Sharp from the Southern Forest Community Land Camp. Wallen members also with us today, we have Vanessa, and Jack will be joining us soon. She's just having a bit of technical difficulties. So we have 6 incredible presenters today, and thank you all so much for joining us this morning. We're really looking forward to this session. The structure is going to go, we have about a 10 to 12 minute presentation and then a few minutes for Q&A for those kind of more immediate questions. We'll do our first hour and then we'll have a little tea and coffee break. We'll come back and do the last 3 speakers, and then we'll have a nice big Q&A at the end. So please feel free to write down your questions as we go. Firstly for each speaker, and then for that big Q&A at the end. So we're all in this room because we care about the impact of feral animals on our extremely unique and fragile environment, and we hope that everyone gets something out of this great conversation. So it's being recorded, hopefully for all of our Wallen network to benefit, and it will be on our YouTube channel. So let's get started. First up, we have Bruce Webber from the WA Feral Cat Working Group. Bruce is on the executive with the WA Feral Cat Working Group and executive manager of science and conservation with Bush Heritage Australia. He has more than 20 years of experience working across government, academia, and the non-for-profit sector, and collaborating with a diversity of stakeholders. As a global change ecologist, Bruce combines science strategy and leadership with applied research delivery and science communication. In 2020, he wrote the WABSI Research Prioritisation Project for improving the management of feral cats in WA. And more recently, he has been collaborating with a range of partners to deliver improved policy solutions for the management of pet and stray cats. Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you, Eve. Pleasure to be here. I'll just get my screen shared and you can let me know when things are ready to roll.
Perfect.
All good? There we go. Good. So let's see if I can even change slides. There we go. I'd like to recognise that I'm calling in today from Wajak Noongar Butcher as well. I'd also like to pay my respects to traditional custodians from right across the state. We are very lucky to be able to collaborate with some really impressive land managers, Indigenous ranger groups who are doing some really good work in cat management space. I'd also like to recognise that this is not about demonising cats. These are my cats that I've had over the years. I'm here to get the best welfare outcomes for all animals. And I think it's really important as we go forward to pick the best outcomes for managing cats in our landscapes, wherever they are, that we do that with all animal welfare as a best part of our practice going forward. I'd like to start by giving you a bit of an introduction to the WA Feral Cat Working Group and where we came from. And it was this conference, maybe some of you were there in Mandurah back in 2018, maybe some of you are even in that picture, which is where the WA Feral Cat Working Group kicked off. This was a really interesting symposium bringing cat management together from right across the state. And from this came the WABSI research plan soon after. And from that research plan came the WA Feral Cat Working Group to not only deliver that plan, but to deliver outcomes to improve the management of cats right across the state through 3 pillars. The first is making information on cat management accessible to everybody. The second is to drive a program of prioritised research. So there's all of those knowledge gaps where we could improve the management of cats can be addressed. And then the third is recognising that, like most invasive species, cats don't care about whether they're crossing into someone else's territory. They're tenure blind, and we really need to be highly coordinated across all organisations if we are going to get the best management outcomes for managing cats in our landscapes. This is the working group. You may recognise a few of those people in there. We've got good representation from across government, from across research, and from across private land conservation organisations. We not only have the working group, we also have an advisory group who come in on a case-by-case basis to provide advice as and when they're needed. While I'm not represented on there, we used to have Mick in that role, and we're out to transition to a new person in that role. We also have a research committee that provides expert advice on how we prioritise our engagement in the research space. And what I'm very pleased to announce today, it hasn't been announced publicly, is that we've just received 5 years of additional funding going forward. That's not only to re-recruit a new executive officer. Sadly, our last amazing executive officer, Jill, took up another role at Murdoch University partway through last year. So we've been without an EO for the last few months. So we will be recruiting in the next week or two if everything goes well in that space. But most importantly, we've got a big pool of seed funding to get research underway, and ideally research that is combined with on-ground management at the same time. So watch this space. This year is going to be seeing a lot more activity from the working group. Let's go through those 3 pillars, though. I'd like to unpack those. The first is that we are really positioning ourselves, and have been for quite a while now, as being that one-stop information shop. If you want to know something about cat management, if you want to know about research, if you want to know what projects are being done in your part of the state, we're trying to make that information available on our website. There is a little bit of updating to be done from the last few months, but that is really, if you do have a question that needs answered, come to our website and have a look at all of the wonderful content there. If you can't find it there, let us know and we'll make sure it's available. So please use that as a place to come for first pass information. The second part, as I said, is that prioritised research. And this builds on the plan that I wrote when I was working with the WA Biodiversity Science Institute. Interestingly, that same plan largely underpinned a lot of the framework done at the federal level, the feral cat TAP that came out, when was it, last year? It was finally approved. This research plan actually underpins a lot of the structure of the federal TAP. But that's getting into the management space in those 2 yellow boxes there. First, about improving the existing tools we have, but then also recognising that there's some really cool tools that are on the way, and how can we develop those faster. The intermediate part is quantifying impacts. If we can really understand the impact of cats in the environment, we can then understand how to manage them better. And underpinning all of those is just a better understanding of population ecology, which can improve all of those intermediate factors. And then just really ensuring that we retain social license for cat management. That is a big issue that we need to be proactive about in how we talk about cat management, but also how we maintain our engagement with other people who are maybe less involved in cat management frontline work. That sits in this research plan that I mentioned. You can get that on our website. Well worth a look if you haven't had a look at that up to now. And then the final part is the coordination, collaboration, the work we bring together. Hopefully you can see your representation in one of those boxes on the screen. And our goal is to make sure all of these sectors are working as one, talking in the same way about cat management right across the state, but as well as nationally. The big challenge we've realised more recently is that there's a big focus on managing feral cats, and WA is arguably one of the leading proponents in this space nationally, if not internationally, in terms of management of feral cats, which is fantastic. But equally, you know, there is a huge issue around the management of stray and pet cats in WA, and the flow between them is probably far greater than we once thought. Even the fact of how we talk about these different groups is often confusing and overlapping, and the movement of one group into another is well documented. So we've actually been putting a lot of work in recent times into addressing what was identified as the lowest hanging fruit for cat management in WA. This was at our symposium run in 2023, and that was identified as preventing pet cats from roaming. Ironically, this has been something that the state tried to implement back in 2011 when we put the CAT Act together. The CAT Act was very clear at that point that it should allow for local governments to contain pet cats. Unfortunately, there's a joint standing committee that oversees the rules, runs the ruler over all of these local laws, and they've been causing significant problems in this space. At last count, 28 local governments have tried to introduce these rules. 3 of them have actually been successful, but so many of them have been banging their head against a brick wall. And we end up with this crazy situation where Stephen Narrogin was able to get his law through, but just down the road, Stephen Capel was not. And this is simply not okay. And particularly when we're starting to see impacts on our iconic native animals like the numbat, this is just simply not good enough. And we've been really advocating strongly in this space. We undertook the government themselves actually undertook a survey in 2019 as part of their last review that showed most people wanted cats to be contained. We did a new survey in 2024 that showed there's not a lot of knowledge about how to best manage cats, and we're not very compliant. But most importantly, if we could implement cat containment, nearly 80% of local governments across the state would put that in place, which is a fantastic piece of insight. That work is also published on our website in this report, as well as in that scientific paper that came out recently, if you're keen to have a look at that. We're also running sessions. Over East, people have been containing pet cats for a very long time. We don't need to reinvent the wheel in this regard. And we actually ran with Walga one of their biggest ever online workshops where we took local governments from over East, brought them over to WA and got them just to tell us how they do it. And we just simply need to adopt what's been working over there, learn from their mistakes as well, and then roll that out in WA. And finally, local government minister has finally caved to this pressure. Luckily, what we've got is that she has announced that an amendment will be coming through to really clarify that local governments can contain pet cats, that act was really clear that this can be possible, and hopefully we'll see the floodgates open for that this year. Separate to that, and just recently, she's also announced that we're going to be having a big review of the Cat Act. Now, this is really important for feral cats as well, because we have this situation at the moment where stray cats, that really awkward group to manage, still falls in between that group between pet cats under the Cat Act and feral cats under the BAM Act. So this is a real opportunity to clarify that intermediate problematic ground that many of us are having to deal with and not sure what tools we can deploy in certain landscapes in this space. Lastly, we're also doing a little bit of work trying to tidy up the increasing pressure that's coming from fringe elements in this space, fringe elements in regards to compassionate conservation, people who are saying that somehow cats don't have an impact on Australia's wildlife. We pushed back very strongly on that. And other people who are pushing the attitude that trap, neuter, release and maintaining cats on farms somehow is a good way to manage cats because there's potential benefits for rodent control. These are myths that simply just need to be busted. And unfortunately, those rumours are hanging around for too long. So we're putting a little bit of work into pushing back on those as well. Why do we do this? We do this because cats have had an horrible impact on Australia's landscape. We are a global leader because in mammal extinctions because of what cats have done, and that is simply not good enough. If we look at what still is here too, it's not only what's gone extinct, but it's the range contractions that we've seen. Sorry about the quality of the graphics there, but you can see the range that we once had for the numbat and the bilby and the chuditch. And I don't know if you can guess what that animal is in the bottom right-hand corner, the range contraction we can see there, but that's the woylie. This is simply not good enough. These guys are hanging on by the skin of their teeth, and it's up to us through the management that we're doing to turn this around and push that back in the other direction. What is really sobering for me too, in the 15 minutes that I've just been speaking, we've lost about 100,000 animals to cats on average. Okay, that's not okay. We don't have a silver bullet to solve this immediately, But my gosh, there is a lot we can be doing to step this up and get that number down. And if we can do that together, collaboratively, I'll be really pleased. So please get in touch if you haven't spoken to us recently as a working group. We'd love to hear what you're doing. We're very keen to get out and engage with you more as soon as our executive officer is on board this year. And thanks for taking the time to listen.
Cool. Thanks, Bruce. That was fascinating. It's particularly inspiring hearing all of the research and policy work the group is doing. It's awesome stuff. Just very quickly, while people are thinking up their questions, do you think that there's been a change in the kind of general population attitudes towards cat management at this current point in time? Like, it seems like there's quite a bigger swell of momentum towards proper management.
Yeah, well said. It's astonishing. We've been watching this change really closely, and what we've, really about almost getting towards 10 years ago, some really good evidence came out for the impact cats are having on the environment. Not only feral cats, but pet cats and stray cats. Great evidence has also come out about the life that a stray cat and a roaming cat leads and the risks they're taking. And we've been socializing that really extensively. When we first started doing that, there was a lot of pushback. Oh, my cat doesn't do this. That's completely fabricated. Those numbers are ridiculous. That never happens. I've never seen my cat hunt. You get all these excuses popping out. And that was the predominant pushback we got whenever we was, put on the radio, callers were saying that. We have seen a fundamental flip. So whenever we get on the radio now or in the paper and you watch the comments on a Facebook post, it is everyone on there almost without exception saying this is terrible. We've got to keep cats inside. It's cruel on cats. It's terrible for our native wildlife. Why aren't we seeing change? Should have happened years ago.
So good
the
to hear.
momentum has completely flipped. And sadly, what we're seeing is the community running ahead and the government lagging behind. And, I think we have an opportunity in WA to go, we're essentially national laggards in this space when it comes to managing pet and stray cats. We're doing great work in feral cat space, as I said earlier, but we have an opportunity to essentially go from the back of the pack to leading over the next 12 to 18 months. And I'd love to see everyone here pushing that argument, talking to their local member, saying that we need to do better, calling for action, calling for funding support, calling for better collaboration between community groups. It's going to take all of those little measures to get us to where we need to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so good to have you guys have your funding reinstated so you can kind of be that driver behind that action. Thank you so much, Bruce. I reckon we'll see you again in the extended Q&A. And if anyone's got questions for Bruce, please write them down and we'll come back to them then.
Pleasure.
Now we're going to head over to Corrin. Corrin is the Invasive Animal Program Leader for DBCA, where she has worked for over 16 years, starting in Kununurra as the cane toad coordinator. She's been in the roles of Invasive Animals Program Leader for 8 years. Corrin's role includes preparing high-level agency advice, policy, and procedures relating to invasive animals for both internal and external use. She has oversight of 2 large operational programs, the Invasive Predator Management Program and the Cane Toad Program. The Invasive Predator Management Program includes Western Shield, which many of you will probably be familiar with, and the Feral Cat Program. Now, she's the delegated officer within DBCA for managing the use and possession of 1080 for conservation purposes under the Code of Practice for 1080, and she sits on a number of national working groups and co-chairs the Terrestrial Vertebrate Working Group. Her team of 18 staff work across all aspects of invasive animal management and policy, as well as the operational delivery of predator management to over 4.2 million hectares of land for native species conservation. It's amazing. Welcome, Corrin.
Thank you.
No worries.
I'll just navigate to share my screen.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
Is
that working?
Yep, looks good. If you want to just pop it in presenter mode, then you're good to go.
Yeah, that's what I'm just about to do. Good?
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. Thanks very much for the intro, and pleasure to be here today to speak on behalf of the Department of Biodiversity Conservation and Attractions. As you can see, and as Bruce has said, obviously feral cats and foxes in this state play a significant role in impacts to our native species and have done for a very long time. No, sorry, I'm frozen on my slide. There we go. Before I get started, just want to pay my respects to people past, present and future, and to say that we highly value the ongoing relationships that we have both in this program and across the department, the insights and traditional management practices that we're fortunate to share with many people across many parts of this state. Today, unfortunately, I thought as we haven't got anyone from Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development or Department of Health to speak on behalf of the pieces of legislation that govern how we manage feral cats in Western Australia, I thought I'd start with some legislation and declarations and what it actually means for you in the feral cat management space. So in terms of legislation and all of the boring things that guide how we do stuff in Western Australia, we have the Medicines and Poisons Act, the Biosecurity and Agricultural Management Act, Conservation Land Management Act, which is administered by our agency, obviously the Animal Welfare Act, the Firearms Act and the Cat Act, which Bruce has spoken about. And we're very lucky to see Department of Local Government show an interest in reviewing that act, where hopefully we might see some better cat containment laws come through in the near future. From a national perspective, we have two significant pieces of legislation that I guess inform how we manage toxins, which is the APVMA, and second of all, the EPBC Act around, how we protect the environment in Western Australia, which flows through to our state government laws. The declaration of feral cats in WA came about in about 2019. The declaration basically provides a mechanism so that we're able to effectively and humanely manage feral cats in Western Australia. The policy that was implemented as part of this declaration was developed in consultation and as a consequence of the stakeholder engagement that was done to enact this declaration. And that consultation was done obviously across lots of different sectors in Western Australia. And at the time, like Bruce said, there were many organisations that felt strongly about stray cats. And therefore we do have three categories of cats in WA at this point in time. Feral cats being the ones that have been declared, and then we have stray and domestic cats, with domestic cats being kind of managed under the Cat Act and stray cats unfortunately falling into that grey space of really uncertainty about which piece of legislation might govern how we might manage those in Western Australia. The management actions or management options that are described in the policy are either lethal or non-lethal, and they relate to the category of cat that you're going to be managing. I guess first and foremost, like Bruce said, with having pet cats himself, and obviously many people in Western Australia having pet cats, is that we need to be making sure that we're managing feral cats for a genuine conservation outcome. So that means that, if you're going to be looking to manage feral cats somewhere in Western Australia, you need to be really conscious of what is the outcome that you're doing that action for. And ultimately, from our agency's perspective, our outcome is to protect native species and hopefully see their improvement in population status right across the state. So I thought I'd also cover off on some of the tools and how and what the legislation is that guides their use. So for toxin use in Western Australia, so currently We have two types of mechanisms for using 1080 in WA, and that is through baits or through felixes. If you're looking to use toxin for the purposes of conservation, then the first step is to email the Ecosystem Health Branch at the email address on the screen. And then you go through a process of completing a baiting application, it's risk assessed, and then you are issued a permit to purchase the toxin. So the process essentially is prescribed to us by legislation. We do have a fairly large and growing contingent of people in Australia who are objecting to the use of toxin. And so the purpose of having this legislation and making sure that it's very tightly restricted in its use is to ensure that we maintain that social license, which again is something that Bruce was talking about. So it's not just about the social license of managing cats in Western Australia, it's also maintaining the social license for the use of toxin, because at a landscape scale, that is the most effective way for us as an agency to be tackling this massive impact to our native species. So in terms of current baits available that are registered with the APVMA, remember that's the national piece of legislation, we have two registered baits. One is Eradicat, which is manufactured by Department of Biodiversity Conservation and Attractions, and the other is Curiosity, which is available nationally and is a different toxin to 1080. It's called PAP. It currently isn't recommended for use in Western Australia because it's non-selective in its target specificity. So whereas 1080, our native species have evolved with that toxin in the environment, PAP is not naturally occurring, and therefore if native species were to take a bait that has PAP in it, they will die. So on Eradicat, it is nationally registered now by the APVMA to be used in Western Australia, South Australia, Northern Territory and Queensland. That update to the registration also removes the restrictions that have been in place around use of this product in Northern Quoll areas. It is manufactured by the department. We do have a process for approval of Eradicat, which is that you do need to apply to the DBCA Feral Cat Tech Committee. That committee was set up back in the day basically to make sure that anyone who wants to use this product is using it for the intent and purposes that the product's manufactured for, and that is for conservation purposes. Felixes are the cat grooming devices available from Thylation. In terms of training that's required to use a felixer, you do need to do the online training that is available through the Thylation website, in addition to your normal 1080 training. There are some additional conditions for use in Western Australia, but we are more than happy to talk you through those if you are looking to use felixes in the future, or if you're not sure about how to start getting your felixes active if you have got felixes that have been sent to you recently. Leg hold traps and legislation. So leg hold traps are not a prescribed method for control of feral cats in WA. That is prescribed to us under the Animal Welfare Act, and that is administered by the Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development. To use leg hold traps, you need to have an animal ethics permit, which you can apply for through the DPIRD Animal Ethics Committee. You will need to make sure that you meet all animal welfare requirements to be able to use this technique. At the moment, our agency has no capacity, unfortunately, to provide any training in the use of leg holds unless we're in collaboration with stakeholders to deliver a project. So we do have a number of partnerships that we have in place where we do leg hold trapping, particularly down on the South Coast. So it is something that we can have a conversation about, but it does need to be a collaborative project. In terms of cage traps, they are a prescribed method for use in WA under the Animal Welfare Act. The The trick is that you do need to remember that if you do trap a feral cat, you have to have thought through how you're going to euthanize it. So as I've mentioned, obviously the use of firearms is regulated by the Firearms Act, and with the new Firearms Act in place, it has made it more difficult for people to be able to maintain their firearms licenses. If it's within an urban or peri-urban area, you may need to notify WAPOL of the use of your firearm to euthanize the cat. You can also use lethal injection, but it does require licenses from Department of Health. So cage trapping is a prescribed method, but you just need to make sure before you start putting your cage traps out, you've thought through how you're going to euthanize the feral cats that you might trap. The second part of that is to make sure that if you are cage trapping in areas where people have pet cats, that you do have available a chip scanner so that you can make sure that the cat that you're going to be euthanizing is not someone's pet. Shooting is also a prescribed method under the Animal Welfare Act. You can use thermal technology, and that has been highly beneficial to some of the contractors that we have employed to do feral cat shooting for the department in particular scenarios. Like I said, firearms are regulated under the Firearms Act. In terms of shooting, and I know Jez is going to speak about Conservation Australia work that they've been doing, certainly I think the use of thermals has seen a significant improvement in feral cat management. And I know on Christmas Island, where they've transitioned to using thermal scopes for most of their cat management on island, they have been highly successful in taking out a significant population of the cats on Christmas Island with an aim to eradication over there. So the results of our invasive predator management program, which as I was introduced, we currently deliver invasive predator management to about 4.2 million hectares of conservation estate or stakeholder estate in WA. For some of the results that we've seen, and this is just a quick snapshot, but we have seen really positive recovery of native species in areas where we do conduct baiting. And this is baiting that largely is done by the air. In Cape Range, we've, as you can see from the graph, seen a significant improvement in rock wallabies around that area. We've also transitioned from using fox control to just focusing on feral cats as being the main impact on those species present in this area now. What we do see right across the sites that we manage is native species improvement, recovery, and also, for example, around Dryandra, where there's been a lot of stakeholder engagement in feral cat management, we're seeing, numbat populations starting to expand out from that core conservation estate. So from our perspective, building partnerships and expanding our footprint around conservation estate is a really important part of what we do and the success in WA of feral cat management. In terms of our operational area within the programs that I manage, this is our northern operational area. This is in the last 18 months significantly grown, and we're holding on to our seats for the coming winter cat baiting program that we'll be delivering this year, with a further expansion to some of these cells. So continually growing in the north. In the south, this is a lot of historical work delivered under the Western Shield program, but now we're transitioning to talking about the southern operational area for predator management. These sites have integrated predator management, so we deliver both fox and feral cat baiting in most of these cells. And, over the years from when Western Shield first started in 1996, we have seen significant improvements in native species populations, to the point where we, support a lot of translocation programs, both interstate and intrastate. So we're sending animals out of WA to new population areas. And that means for Western Australia, we've got a larger gene pool of these native species. So in terms of our results, this is probably one of my favourite things that really demonstrates how important native hollows are in the environment, but also just how significant a change, baiting programs can have in the ecosystem. Yep, that gives me warm and fuzzies every time I listen to that music and
so
see that
good.
video.
Whereabouts is that log, Corrin?
Down in the southwest forests. Yeah.
Nice. It's amazing.
Pretty special. Yeah. So I thought I'd end on a piece of pretty significant work that the team and I put together in 2022-23, and that is the first feral cat strategy in the nation. So WA is leading the way, as Bruce said, in feral cat management. We are the first state in Australia to have a strategy specifically on target actions for the management of feral cats in Western Australia. It came with a pretty significant budget of $7.6 million of investment from state government to deliver a multitude of different things. Ultimately, in all of this, it's about conserving populations of native species through effective and adaptive management of feral cats statewide. So as some of you may be aware, we have the NRM grants that are an annual grant round that comes out from state NRM, and I know Elissa is going to be speaking about the grant round that's coming out shortly. We also provide, I guess, the point of the strategy is to provide a framework for investment. So from mining, NGO, whatever it is, the strategy's there to help guide how that investment is made. I guess our aim ultimately is to make sure that whatever we do, it's consistent and coordinated. And like I said, building around those core conservation areas and expanding our footprint in terms of feral cat management is how we're going to see significant changes in our native species right across the state. If anyone's got any more questions about what we do in the department, that's my email address, and get in contact, ask any questions. I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much, Corrin. That was a great presentation and so interesting, touching on all of those historical management aspects as well as what the future's looking like for DBCA. It sounds pretty great with that big budget and the expanding footprint. It's awesome to hear.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome. And heard you mention Dryandra, which brings us to our next speaker, Christine Townsend.
Awesome.
So
Thank
Christine is the Farmers for Fauna Coordinator for PHCC. Her work brings together her passion for threatened species conservation and agriculture. Through the two projects she coordinates, the Numbat Neighbourhood Project and Defending Dryandra Feral Hotspot Project, Christine gets to work with farmers surrounding Dryandra Woodland National Park to support them with improving habitat for numbats, chuditch and woylies, and pest management with a focus on feral cat and fox control. Christine feels very privileged to be a part of a huge team effort in and around Dryandra to reduce the impacts of feral cats to numbats and other threatened species. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me present today. Let me just share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Looks great.
Ah, fantastic. Okay, yes, thank you for inviting me along. As you know, my name's Christine Townsend. I'm the Farms Fauna Coordinator for PHCC. I would like to start by respectfully acknowledging the Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of the land and extend my respects to elders both past and present. I would also like to pay my respects to the Wilman elders and acknowledge the Wilman people as the traditional custodians of where I live and work. We have quite a lot of involvement with the Wilman people around Dryandra Woodland, and yeah, it's a privilege to be able to work with them. Okay, this is a map to show you where Dryandra Woodland National Park sits within our Peel Harvey catchment, and more specifically within our Hotham Williams sub-catchment. Dryandra Woodland is 28,000 hectares in size and is made up of 17 satellite blocks, which are completely surrounded by farmland. It is home to one of two naturally occurring wild populations of our endangered numbat, and it's also home to other threatened species, including woylies, chuditch, and malleefowl. Dryandra, as I said, is surrounded by farmland, and it's due to this fragmentation that our farmers play a really important role in protecting Dryandra's threatened fauna. Before I discuss our feral cat management grant project defending Dryandra, I'd like to give you a summary of the feral cat management we have and are still conducting around Dryandra. So PHCC has been working with farmers surrounding Dryandra Woodland to support them with pest animal control since 2017 through the Farmers for Fauna project. This project involves giving farmers cage traps and training to trap feral cats and supplying them with cat food to use as baits in these traps. And in the past, we have given out vouchers to say thank you for the reporting of feral cat culls. Through the Numbat Neighbourhood Project, which started in 2018 to 2023, we were able to continue the Farms for Fauna project, but also increase our feral animal control by employing a pest animal control contractor to conduct feral animal control on properties near Dryandra. The Dryandra Winter Project was a very short project, but with a lot packed into it. So we were able to do a non-toxic Felix trial on farmland around Dryandra. You can see my little dog, Duke, in the picture there. We were trialling Bluetooth blocking tags with all sorts of different dogs, which was a very fun and hectic day out. We also did supported DBCA to do a DNA analysis of feral cats that were culled in and around Dryandra Woodland, and this information has helped guide our management activities. So we are currently delivering our second Numbat Neighbourhood Project, which goes until 2028. We will continue through this project. We fund 30 hours per month of feral animal control with our contractor, PYNC Invasive Animal Control, who's amazing. We have, through our relationship building by both myself and the contractor, we've been able to increase the number of properties where we are allowed to conduct trapping and ground shooting. And this means we'll be able to target our areas to be focused around the main block of Dryandra Woodland where most of the numbats are. All right, so PHCC was successful in our application for a feral cat management grant in the first round for a total of $183,865. Through this project, we are conducting 3,000 hectares of pest animal control. So it's feral cat control with opportunistic fox control. All of the culls are recorded into feral scan, and we take DNA samples of the feral cats culled. We do fauna monitoring using 4G cameras to provide real-time feral cat and native fauna monitoring. and we produce comms material to help raise awareness of feral cats and the threat they pose to threatened species. So there are 3 large properties, farms involved in this project, with well over 3,000 hectares of land. And we were able to pick these properties by using the Elissa trial results, using the DNA analysis results to tell us where the feral cat hotspots were, and also using local knowledge of our pest animal control contractor. So we determined these 3 properties as feral cat hotspots. We do a lot of fauna monitoring. So we have 12 4G cameras set up that are sending email notifications in real time to both myself and our contractor. So to find out where we put these 12 4G monitoring cameras, we first had a conversation with the landholders to see where they had seen feral cats, paying attention to waterways, corridors and tracks. We originally set up 21 Reconyx cameras, 7 per property, to determine where feral cats were sighted. From these results, we set up 4 4G cameras per property. And so the contractor, when he receives a photo of a feral cat, he uses that to guide where he's going to go that night. He uses the timing of when the images were taken to know when the feral cats are active. So that's been really helpful for him. Every 3 months, I service the 12 cameras and send the SD cards to Numbat Niche Consulting to analyse the images. We then send the farmers and the pest animal control contractor the quarterly reports, and we've also completed 2 annual reports for 2024 and 2025. All right, here's some of the images that we have captured. So to date, there have been 839 feral cat images captured on the cameras. 2 of the 3 properties have had a decrease in the feral cats captured from 2024 to 2025. We've had some really big cats captured on these cameras. Best efforts have been made to identify individual feral cats, but this can be quite challenging with tabby cat. But an estimate of individual cats on 3 properties currently is 27 individuals. It is difficult. So here are the results from our most recent annual report. So you can see the images captured for both cats, foxes and rabbits on the 3 properties. It's really good to look at all of those 3 species together. So it is difficult to directly compare camera data from 2024 to 2025 due to the cameras only being operational from May to December in 2024. The camera data comparison is not directly equivalent as the data set differ in duration. However, the comparative results offer a useful indication of trends. So property 1, as you can see, is a real feral cat hotspot. When cats are removed from this property, new cats quickly recolonise the space from surrounding habitats, highlighting the need for sustained control at this site. The 2025 results show that property 1 and 3 have recorded a decrease in cat activity, and property 2 showed an increase. This directly correlates with the feral cat control being conducted, with property 1 and 3 having the most hours conducted and property 2 having limited control. Using this data, the feral cat control will continue at property 1 and ramp up at property 2. The consistent low feral cat numbers at property 3 and evenly distributed captures across all camera sites may suggest a stable and low density feral cat population, and there are a lot of foxes at this site. All right, so all feral cats that are culled through this project are recorded into Feral Scan, and if anyone hasn't used Feral Scan, it's really, really great, really good resource for us all to utilise. So since our feral cat control started with the contractor in about 2020 and we started recording these culls into Feral Scan, we have over 400 records within there. And we also record the fox culls into Feral Scan as well. For the Defending Dryandra project, the pest animal control contractor has been trapping and ground shooting on properties for 20 hours per month. and to date has culled 60 feral cats for this project. The first feral cat was massive, weighing in at 7.1 kilograms. And recently the contractor removed a feral cat that was 10 kilograms inside. It was massive. This is the largest feral cat he has ever removed in his 18 years of pest animal control around Dryandra. We do plan on looking at individual cats culled and the ones captured on camera and matching those to try and develop a catalogue of cats so that we can see the cats that are still at large. So we have been doing opportunistic fox control while he's been out and about, and he has culled 51 foxes to date through the Defending Dryandra project. All right, now to the fun slides. One of the positives of having all these cameras looking for feral cats is the native animals we see on farm. I had a call from our pest animal control contractor, Daniel, one day, who was so excited because he'd just received an email from the camera and there was a number image. So he was stoked and he was really happy that all of his hard work was paying off for these threatened species. Other animals captured include lots of echidna, chuditch, quenda, brush-tailed possums, bushstone curlews, and lots of kangaroos. One of the farmers, when they received their report, didn't quite believe me that he had quenda on his property. So I sent him through an image and he was very, very excited to hear that. All right, so we've had a few challenges on this project. We have had a lack of mobile reception for the 4G cameras. Anyone who's been to Dryandra will know all about that. There's not great reception, which we knew, but we did purchase antennas to help with this. So currently 9 out of the 12 cameras are sending images via email. We've had a lot of false triggers on these S-Promise cameras. They're very sensitive, even though we've turned down the sensitivity. We still get a lot of false triggers. So we have actually changed the running time to just run at night, except on one of the cameras where we had that number sighting. And also the increased paddocks at the moment that are in crop. So a lot of farmers have gone out of sheep, which means that there are a lot of more paddocks that are in crop, which makes it difficult at certain times of the year to conduct ground shooting. And I did speak to a farmer the other day that's very passionate about native species conservation. He was worried that some farmers might lose the incentive to control foxes and feral cats due to not having lambs on the ground. So it's something for us all to keep in mind. One of the other challenges, as we've had Bruce speak about, are the current definitions. So only feral cats are declared pests in WA under the BAM Act, and are therefore legally able to be lethally controlled. If we are to take the WA cat definitions to the letter, are all cats on agricultural land considered stray cats? And does that impact the way that we control these cats, given stray cats are not declared pests? These 3 definitions cause confusions and fear and prevent many organisations from conducting cat control. PHCC, with landholders' support, have defined these unowned cats on farmland near Dryandra as feral cats and have many measures in place to protect owned domestic cats. The farms where we conduct our feral cat management have a lot of infrastructure, including grain sheds, shearing sheds, machinery sheds, pig shelters, hay shelters, silos, tanks and culverts. Cats take advantage of these shelters to hunt rodents and for shelter. Under current definitions, are these then stray cats? Both native and pest animals also use these sheds for food and shelter. As you can see, foxes use the sheds, as do kangaroos. But some of these sheds are only 100 metres or less from Dryandra. So when the cat is hunting a mouse in the shed, is it a stray cat? But when it enters Dryandra and predates a number, is it a feral cat? So it's very complex. Our feral cat management around Dryandra has often been held up as a success story of collaborative, community-scale feral cat control to protect threatened species. But PHCC is becoming increasingly uncomfortable with conducting feral cat control surrounding Dryangra woodland due to the state's definitions of cats. We highly recommend that WA align with the National Threat Abatement Plan for Predation by Feral Cats 2024 and define cats using binary definitions of pet and feral cats to give organisations like ours the confidence to conduct control of unowned cats on agricultural land and contribute towards the protection of our native species. All right, now the good news. As you can see by this graph, which was kindly provided to us by DBCA, you can see that the numbat population has been steadily increasing. So this numbat population estimate in 2014 were only 50 individuals, and they were at imminent risk of extinction. In 2025, the estimate is now 400, which is great. And that is due in part to all the feral cat control that's being conducted both off reserve and in the woodland itself. However, recently there have been an increase in the number of collared numbats being taken by feral cats and increased sighting of feral cats in Dryangra by visitors. And this has been, seen with the great work that Dr. Tony Friend and the Numbat Task Force have been doing with their numbat collaring project. And that graph at the bottom there is from the drive surveys that they conduct biannually. PHCC, Dryangra landholders and our pest animal control contractor will continue to work hard to reduce the threat of predation by feral cats to help protect numbats and other threat species. Thank you all for listening to my presentation. So this Defending Dryangra project is supported by funding from the state government's Feral Cat Management Grant. Thank you all so much for listening.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christine. I'm conscious that we're at about 11 a.m. now, so if anyone's got questions kind of as the presentations flow, please pop them in the chat and we'll get back to them at the end. But now we're going to head over to Jenna, who's down at Gillami, which is a non-for-profit land care organisation based in Cranbrook. Jenna works to support landholders and regional partners across southern Western Australia to deliver practical environmental and pest management outcomes. Jenna recently took over coordination of Gillami's Feral Cat Management Project, working across community, industry and technology providers and government to navigate the challenges
job that's been advertised for
permitting, implementation and on-ground delivery. With a background in biology and a lifelong love of animals, she is passionate about protecting native wildlife with a focus on what actually works in practice, sharing lessons learned, challenges encountered, and how collaboration and emerging technology can support effective, scalable feral cat management. So over to you, Jenna.
Thank you. Let me just get that.
If you could just stop screen sharing, Christine, that would be perfect.
There we
Awesome.
go.
Thank you.
Sorry, just trying to get it full screen here.
Yeah, you're all good.
There, is that good?
Yeah, looks perfect.
Perfect. Hi everyone, and thanks to WA Land Care for hosting today's Hot Topic Forum on such an important issue. I would like to first acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands and waters of our region, honoring the connection of Noongar peoples to country past, present, and emerging. So my name is Jenna Walliser. I'm the project coordinator at the Gillami Centre. Today I'll be sharing a snapshot of Gillami's Improving Feral Cat Management in the Kent-Franklin Sub-Region project, which is supported by the state government's Feral Cat Management Grants program. I'm going to focus on what we've been doing on the ground, why we're doing it, and how community involvement and education is central to the project. For those who aren't familiar with Gillami, we're a not-for-profit land care organization based in Cranbrook, and we've been supporting landholders across southern Western Australia for over 30 years. There's some old and new pictures up there, and our operational area. Our work focuses on practical place-based outcomes, things like biodiversity conservation, pest management, and sustainable land use, which is always in partnership with landholders, community groups, and government. Feral cat management fits naturally into this space because it sits right at the intersection of environmental protection, agriculture, and community responsibility. So why feral cat management matters in the Kent-Franklin subregion. Feral cats are listed as a key threatening process under the EPBC Act, and their impact on native wildlife is significant and well documented. In the Kent-Franklin subregion, this includes species like the vulnerable chuditch and hooded plover and endangered Australasian bittern. One feral cat in the Australian bush can prey on hundreds of animals each year, and nationally there are estimated 2.8 million feral cats covering almost the entire continent. Beyond biodiversity, feral cats also affect agriculture and human health. In our region, broadacre farming is a major industry, and feral cats are known to spread diseases like toxoplasmosis, contributing to livestock losses and economic impacts. So basically, this isn't just a conservation issue, it's a whole landscape issue. And that's actually my pet lamb in the corner there. Had to throw her in. Yeah, so project objectives. The aim of this project is to take a coordinated, integrated approach to feral cat management across the Kent-Franklin subregion. Our objectives are to reduce feral cat impacts on native wildlife and agriculture, deliver integrated cross-tenure control, so doing that by smart trap, shooting, and baiting, increase community awareness and involvement, build knowledge through education, monitoring, and research. Yeah, so there's a little picture of a classroom excursion that we did with the kids at the primary school in Cranbrook. The project area covers around 450,000 hectares in an internationally recognized biodiversity hotspot. Despite its ecological significance, the region isn't covered by a registered biosecurity group, and until now there hasn't been any coordinated or long-term feral cat management in place. This project is helping to fill that gap by bringing together landholders, community members, and technical partners to work towards shared outcomes. Community engagement. Community involvement is a cornerstone of this project. Local landholders and community members have been involved from the outset, from planning through to on-ground delivery. A key part of this has been community-led feral cat and fox shooting activities in Tunney and Franklin River, delivered in line with best practice animal welfare and safety standards. These events have been well supported locally and form an important component of our integrated pest management approach alongside other control methods. We've also held technical meetings and information sessions to ensure everyone involved understands how feral cat management fits within broader landscape scale of pest control. And that's a picture from one of our shoots that we had last year. Education. Education is another key part of the program. We partnered with the Claws project officer to deliver school incursions across the subregion, focusing on native wildlife, the impacts of feral cats, and responsible cat ownership. Engaging young people is critical, not just for awareness now, but for building long-term stewardship of our environment into the future. On-ground control achievements. In terms of on-ground control, the project uses a combination of control methods, recognizing that no single tool is effective on its own. This includes targeted cat shooting by 2 licensed contracted shooters, community shoot events, and the trialing of emerging technologies. We're currently working with Access Tech smart traps, which are prototype technology, still under development, and thus we haven't had much success so far. In the 2 locations that we deployed them, which is Tambellop Reserve and Broomhill Boots Rock Reserve. These traps are being used to support monitoring and improve our understanding how technology can assist future feral cat management. So when a feral cat is caught by the trap, the procedure is as follows. The trap will alert us sent to mobile app, web app, SMS, and email with an image of the trapped animal. We then confirm the camera imagery of a cat in the trap. The local ranger is to attend the site within 24 hours. Microchip scanner is used to confirm if the cat is domestic in conjunction with the identification of feral cats procedure. If the cat is confirmed or thought to be domestic, the Shire Ranger is to process accordingly. If the cat is confirmed to be feral, it will be humanely euthanized by an authorized person, so whether that be the Shire Ranger or licensed shooter, as per euthanasia of feral cats procedure. If transporting of the feral cat is required, it will be kept in the cage, covered with a breathable material such as a Hessian bag, and moved in a quiet, air-conditioned vehicle. So all this data is recorded by Access Tech and attending personnel. And again, if there is extreme weather, no project personnel available to assess, disturb traps, or another unforeseen circumstance, the traps will not be activated. And they can be controlled by mobile apps, so we can shut them from our phones, which is awesome. Going forward, in our technical meetings with Access Tech, we discussed the third deployment on a property near the Gordon River. This time around, we're doing an increased pre-deployment research to confirm the activity of feral cats in the proposed area by using trail cameras and noting where the cats are seen. So, for example, around water bodies and fire breaks, what age the cats appear to be, what time of the year they're spotted, etc. Rather than just relying on anecdotal evidence from Shire residents and rangers. So yeah, alongside this, preparatory work has been undertaken for erraticat baiting, which will be delivered in accordance with approvals and best practice guidelines. And we actually got that application accepted yesterday, which is great. So can start doing some baiting, hopefully. Across the project, outcomes are measured through cats removed, monitoring data and reporting, allowing us to assess effectiveness and adapt over time. And here, if I can get it to work, actually isn't a cat, but it's a fox, just to kind of show you the trap and the activity around. So those lights are infrared, so they shouldn't deter. But yeah, the reason it's in an open space is because it's working by satellite. So yeah, hopefully improve that prototype in the future. Outcomes and impacts. While this is a multi-year project, we're already seeing positive outcomes. There's a strong community awareness and willingness to be involved. Landholders are actively participating in integrated pest management, and schools are engaging with us in meaningful ways. Over time, the project aims to contribute to improved protection of native species, reduced impacts on agriculture, and more informed and empowered community. Next steps. Looking ahead, the next stages of the project include expanding smart trap deployment and monitoring, delivering erraticat baiting where appropriate, and continuing education and engagement activities. We'll also keep using an adaptive management approach, learning from what works and refining the program as we go. And that's a poster for the tiny fox shoot that we just had last week, which was pretty successful. I think they got 4 cats in one night, which is awesome, along with a bunch of foxes. But and then that is a map that's a map showing the properties that we targeted for feral cats just shooting in 2025. And yeah, got a lot of foxes there as well. But yeah, more to come in 2026. Yeah, thanks very much for the opportunity to share our work today. And I'm happy to connect afterwards. If anyone would like more information, my contact info is on the screen.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jenna.
Thank you.
What we'll do is we'll share everybody's email addresses in the post-session resources. So if you have a specific kind of bigger question, we'll direct that straight to the presenter. You guys do incredible work down at Gillami, Jenna. Awesome to see.
Thank you.
So we'll do a quick break. We'll come back in 5 minutes and then we'll keep going. Thank you so much, everyone, for your attendance so far. It's been so great to hear all the speakers. All right. So I reckon we get back into it. Jez, you're up next. You ready to rock and roll? You're just on mute at the moment. At Wallen, we say you got to donate $20 to the end of year Christmas jar if you do the old speaking on mute.
Oh, I had to click 3 buttons to get it off mute. I'm not sure what's going on there.
2 buttons too many.
Yeah. I'll show system audio. Yeah, okay, yeah.
I think you're muted again, but we can see your slides.
That's better, I think.
All right, you're back.
Can you see my screen?
Looks perfect.
Sweet. Okay. Not very good at this, but I'll give it a shot. On behalf of
so much for coming along.
That's all right. It was put together really quickly, but on behalf of Conservation Australia, we'd like to pay our respects to the traditional owners of the lands that we operate on. We also recognise the farmers and the land managers that also give us permission to operate on their land, which is very important for us. Yeah, I'll move it along. See, Conservation Australia is a group of volunteer hunters assisting government agencies, conservation groups, and property owners in the control by shooting of introduced vermin such as rabbits, feral cats, feral dogs, foxes, pigs, camels, goats, and other species. Our activities promote safe firearms handling, respect for the animals that we hunt, understanding conservation and sustainable utilisation programs, educating members and others for a better understanding of the laws and issues relative to our sport and recreation, and caring for the environment of the property that we work on. Conservation Australia also holds events including social days and shoots promoting good fellowship amongst members and other organisations. And currently we're at about 140 members. We've lost approximately 20% of our members due to the new firearms laws. There was a big exodus, and then we've got more members back again. So anyway, that was a interesting time this last year. Our members come from all walks of life, professionals, former soldiers, dentists. So in 2024, Conservation Australia was a lucky recipient of some $53,000 through the Feral Cat Management Grant Scheme. From there, we purchased thermal rifle scopes, thermal binoculars, a thermal drone, and thermal trail cameras as well. And so at $53,000 doesn't go very far. So in order to procure more equipment, the members chipped in more than 50% towards funding of the thermal rifle scopes and thermal binoculars. And we had to implement a lawful custodian agreements with those members. Purchase of thermal drone and the cameras is 100% funded from the grant funds. So with the thermal rifle scopes, they're very expensive pieces of equipment. This model here was recommended retail $11,000, but due to us being able to do a bulk purchase, we managed to get that price down to under $9,000. The rifle scopes purchased ranged in cost from $5,200 up to the $9,000, and the mounting hardware, dependent on the rifle that it's going on, could be another $300 to $600. All these additional costs borne by the members. So this is the cat that was taken the other night near Boxwood Hill. As you can see, you can see everything in the dark with these thermal scopes, and the key advantages where infrared radiant heat emitted by objects, allowing users to in complete darkness, as well as we can see through some visual obscurance like fog, smoke, rain, and light foliage. Unlike night vision that needs ambient light to function well, thermal imaging works just as effectively during the day as it does during the night. The warm-blooded animals stand out in high contrast against cooler backgrounds, making them much easier and faster to spot and track. Even if they camouflage by the bush, you can still see through the grass. Clearly distinguishing between inanimate objects and animate objects, thermal scopes help prevent misidentification, reducing the risk of accidental shots or dangerous encounters, improved awareness, which is critical for hunting. The new thermal scopes now can have a range of up to 1,000 meters. So, but you can't see what the animal is. It's just a white dot. So it's a selling point that's not really much use. They also aid the thermal devices, the binoculars and the scopes aid in wounded animal recovery as well, and also finding the shot animal so that you can record its weight and sex and so forth. Jeez. So this was a fox taken a month ago as well. And this is a cat being shot. It's thermal scopes telling us it's 303 meters away, but in fact it was only about 100 meters away. So the user must have got the acquisition of the target, must have been looking at something else, but they'd spotted the cat with the lights before finding it with the thermal. So this is the way we prefer to do things. So disadvantages of using the thermal technology, we found it's much akin to using a fairly complex mobile phone. If you don't use it much, then you'll never get to know the ins and outs of the technology. Older members in particular find it a bit scary. The new technology can be hard to learn for them. A year on from getting the rifle scopes, most have come to terms with it by now, and feral cat counts are starting to increase. But that being said, there are also disadvantages when technology lets you down. Sometimes it's inaccurate or it's used inaccurately, like in that case, resulted in the feral cat being humanely euthanized, but it was definitely not 303 meters away. And as you see, when something's over 100 meters away, it's very pixelated. It can be hard to determine if you hadn't seen it through under normal lights, then it'll be hard to say whether that was another marsupial or another animal. Batteries also, they run flat after 4 hours. So you have to carry an assortment of batteries, and we can't see through glass with the thermal scopes. So you've got to have another means of sighting an animal through. Well, that's why we use the rooftop binoculars. Have the binocular mounted on the roof.
Even with the like what you were saying about the, like, I guess the older demographic struggling with that new technology, do you think that the increase in accuracy, and has there been an uptake in, I guess, cull numbers that you've noticed using that new technology, or like an increase in accuracy?
Yes. Not so much the accuracy, because the guys that shoot with us are very accurate in any case, but it does take some of the calculation out of the game, like, so, okay, this scope that we just saw, the video, had 303 meters on it, but it wasn't 303 meters, so that was an error. But the operator realized that it was a lot closer than that, and had a slightly different aim point. But the detection of feral cats is way easier with the thermal scope. It's we're seeing feral cats now that we wouldn't have seen otherwise. Normally, when you shine the lights over any ground, be it a bush line or a paddock, if there's a feral cat there, they just a quick eye shine and then they look away. So you never really find them again. But with the thermal monoculars and the thermal scope, you can still see them.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible technology. And from the details you sent me, you actually did the feral cat detection and culling across quite a few reserves,
Yes.
some DBCA reserves. Yeah, do you want to talk us through that a little bit?
Yeah. So look, this is a picture of the thermal monoculars, very expensive, and can be easily damaged. So we have to take a lot of care with them. But, they're invaluable. So the binocular there is mounted on the side with the spotlight. So we use them both in tandem with each other. It's for much better identification of the animal. So in our vehicles, we have tablets for telling us exactly where we are. So GPS location maps, and also on the top of the dashboard there is the thermal image from the thermal monocular. There's no white spots in that scene. I'll just get through to the properties in a minute. That we've managed to get thermal trail cameras as well, and they're really good. But our model wasn't really well supported in Australia with the GPS location. So the spy point ones, I don't recommend you get them. So they're very good reception, but the GPS location part doesn't work. So we've been back to the manufacturer to make complaints, and they're working on a remedy, but we're not very hopeful that they'll be able to remedy it. It works everywhere else in the world except for here, apparently. So, and yeah, the software with the thermal trail cameras. We also received a thermal drone. This is an interesting one. A lot of the guys that have the drone licenses are a bit scared of it. It's because it's quite easy to use on one hand, but complex to use on the features side of it. I'm probably the most, I am the most familiar with it. So and I'm just starting to get the hang of it now after having it here for a year. It's going to take longer to assess the drone's usefulness for finding feral cats, but I'm very confident that it is useful for that. I can see rabbits and foxes with it, so why couldn't I see feral cats?
So you use those for like a bird's eye view of a reserve to see what activity is going on in the area?
Yeah, exactly. And see, there's only a few of our members that are licensed to fly the drone at night, and they've got their license via training organised by the employer. The training costs approximately $3,000, and the remote operator certificate, which CA would need to run that, is over $2,000. And at the moment, the members don't want to don't want to spend that money. We're all funded by the members. As we get more familiar with the operational capability of the drone and we're starting to see its usefulness more, I think that will change. So this was us using it at Redmort recently at night, going over the creek beds. We only saw kangaroos, which is a testament to the work that they're doing there with Bush Heritage Australia. It's been really very active there. They can program it to follow creek beds and creek lines. We also got it chasing after a fox at one stage. Unfortunately, I didn't have the record on for that, but was a bit exciting. We also used it for spotting malleefowl nests, because they stick out quite markedly with the thermal drone, and you can also measure its temperature from a height, so you don't have to go close to the nest at all. This image was taken from more than 50 meters above the nest, and this is the thermal image of that same nest. So nest is active.
Such a cool image.
Yeah. That was taken early hours of the morning, that image. So we were hoping to see some malleefowl there, but we were only there for half an hour. We didn't get to see any, unfortunately. Bear in mind as well that the areas that CA has been operating in for our have all been under predator control. So using the land managers have been using the baits, the traps, the Felix are grooming traps, and it's fair to say that they're putting in a huge effort in predator control, and that what CA does is probably proving that the feral controls were working more than giving us a big bag of cats. But so for the purpose of the grants monies, these are our what we've done in the last 12 months. This was the 8 projects that we agreed to with the grant monies, and so we had one project abandoned due to fire that was potentially heading our way, so we got out early. There was no cats taken there, but we got 7 cats at Boxwood Hill last year, compared to 3 projects at a similar time the year before, where we also got 7. So we're one less project and more, the same amount of cats taken. Many Peaks National Park, that was our first project there. We didn't see any cats or foxes there. Obviously, they're doing a good job with the baiting. Stokes National Park, we've conducted 4 projects there, and we've only ever shot 1 cat there before this year, and this year we got 4. I must stress, though, that the teams that are going down there to Stokes National Park primarily to shoot deer. So foxes and cats are a bit of a side haul for them. So that's actually represents more than double the amount of previous years since we've got thermal. Cats taken from Bush Heritage Australia projects have increased, and also already this year, the 2 projects conducted there have seen more than, I think, 80 foxes taken with 6 cats. We've still got 1 project there to go. Cat numbers taken at Stokes showed a marked improvement on previous years, with 4 cats taken in 2025 compared to only 2 cats for the previous 4 years. Cats taken on all overall projects have increased, with only 21 taken in 2024 and 40 taken in this past 10 months, with some members now using their thermal equipment. This was a cat taken 2 nights ago, or 3 nights ago, at Boxwood Hill. It's an 8-kilo cat. Aaron's very pleased. So, in summary, we feel that the acquisition of the thermal equipment has been very good and a welcome addition to our feral cat management capabilities. We have members that have never removed cats before starting to see and remove more cats. More technically challenged members have required a little bit more assistance, with some still struggling with a different methodology required to use the new equipment. However, a few cats have got away. As we're being extra vigilant with the use of thermal equipment, it's not always easy to discern between a cat and a native marsupial. Excited cats tend to make quick movements similar to some of our natives, and a cat up a tree can also look a lot like a possum, and vice versa. Hence, we also use light for final identification before taking a shot. Beyond 100 metres, even the best thermal is still pixelated enough to make identification of small animals problematic. We are now entering a second year with thermal equipment, and we're starting to realise the benefits of it more clearly. Our latest project, Boxwood Hill, has just concluded with 6 cats taken, including 1 male weighing 8 kilos. There are also 49 foxes taken on that project. As we progress and gain full familiarity with the equipment, we will see even more gains. The drone is still something users are a bit afraid of, as difficult to gain familiarity whilst on shooting projects, which last just a few days. I am the most familiar with the drone, as I practice over an A-class reserve, which is across the road from me. But this is a very useful tool, and it will save us a lot of time targeting areas where there are no heat signatures.
And I guess that's the biggest takeaway, isn't it? It's like it just increases your accuracy and efficiency so much.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Jez. If anyone's got any questions for Jez, please write them down or pop them in the chat, and we'll come back to them at the end of the session. And for now, we'll move over to Jeff. I will share your slides for you, Jeff.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
Stop sharing.
Awesome. Thanks, Jez.
I'm just trying to work out how to stop sharing. Oh, there.
Should be down the bottom. Awesome. All right. Cheers, I'll just share these ones. Yeah, no worries at all. Thank you. All right. I'll just get these up. All right. How does that look? Was it in presenter mode?
I think it's in presenter mode.
Yep. There we go.
Yep. Cool. That's great.
Awesome. Take it away, Jeff.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to speak today. Just a quick shout out to Jez and his team as a good segue. They've been our primary source of shooting activities for the past 3 years on our bush heritage reserves in the Fitzsterling. So, yeah, they've done a great job, and it's great to have their support. So thank you to you guys. So my name's Jeff Pinder. I'm the project officer for the Fitzsterling Fauna Recovery Project. Now, I did notice in the chat there was something about integrating native species and obviously some of the other invasive species, not just feral cats, which of course we're here to talk about primarily. But Bush Heritage have invested a lot of time and effort into acquiring properties in this region with the primary aim of acquiring them, protecting them under covenant, and where areas have been cleared, we've undertaken large-scale biodiverse restoration. And all of this is with a view to increasing habitat quality and enabling native fauna to thrive, as well as making it much more difficult for feral cats to hunt successfully. We also integrate fire management and engage. We're very proud of our work we do with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in our space. So that's a good segue. Just like to pay or acknowledge the traditional owners, particularly the Menang and Goreng Noongar nations on whose land I live and work, and to pay my respects to elders past and present. Next slide, please. So for those of you who are not familiar, this is the area that we call the Fitzsterling. It's actually a narrower definition than the broader one, which encompasses both Fitzgerald River and Stirling Range National Parks and quite a significant area around that. The reason why we've honed in on this particular spot, which is a 70-kilometre span, is it's part of our reconnection project to try and connect up habitat to enable safe passage of movement of animals between the two parks. Next slide, please. So this map gives you a bit more detail, and you can see the investment in this area already. Bush Heritage themselves, you can see with the areas in orange, and there's also a lot of reserve network from DBCA with their Karakat Nature Reserve, and also the managed estate of Pinder. There's also a number of private individuals who are also managing reserves, and Greening Australia have a couple of properties as well. There's also a highlight there that you can see all the white areas which show you the level of fragmentation. This area has suffered a precipitous rate of clearing over time, and this does represent the southern extremity of the wheat belt. So it's a very valuable area for particularly cereal cropping. Next slide, please. So these are some of the characteristics of the project that we've been involved in. And I should say it started in 2020 with some generous funding from Lottery West. And so that took us up to 2025. So the past 5 years, we've been working under that funding stream predominantly. And as I said before, it's an integrated program, multiple controls. So the usual suspects, things like shooting and leg hold trapping, Felix of grooming, traps, baiting, fumigation, biological control. So there's quite a few tools in our locker that we can lean on. And our species of interest are foxes, feral cats, and rabbits. So it's landscape scale, so a little bit like the Dryandra project that's been running up there. So it may not equate to a large scale to some desert properties, for example, but because of the complexities of the land use, the number of landholders, the biodiversity values, it really does fit that prescription. Tenure blind, so again, we're not just working on our own reserves, but we're also working across neighbouring farms and other individual conservation estate. Strategic and targeted, so we don't have the resources to necessarily engage aircraft and do aerial baiting, for example, but we can be quite nuanced in terms of picking out particular features and hotspots where we believe introduced predators such as feral cats and foxes will spend significant time. So that might include things like ecotones between farm and bush, road reserves, and drainage lines in particular. So those sorts of areas we can actually hone in on. And with our baiting, we actually have to use tethered baiting on farmlands. It's part of our permit requirement. So that's something that we can do. It's quite labour intensive, but it does enable us to keep farmers on board, but also to just pick out some of the key landscape features. And then we also adopt a number of exclusion techniques as well to minimise targeting native species, and that might include raising traps off the ground, As I say, we suspend these baits. They're tethered, but they're off the ground as well. So that restricts some of the other animals that can actually fall foul of those control techniques. It's collaborative, so we work in collaboration with government agencies. We work around that those two key reserves that DBCA manage and their Western Shield program. We work with land care groups, so it's part of that priority place that the Commonwealth Government have nominated, and so there's a number of land care groups that are also working similarly in terms of feral cat and introduced predator control. And we have a large community base, so that's predominantly with volunteers, both field-based and office-based. You can see that slide there. There's a cat. This was in a very wet year. I think it was 2021 or 2022. Alarmingly, there's about 7, 8 kittens there. So it was a very high productive year with rainfall accelerating booms of all sorts of things, including our feral cats. Next slide, please. Okay, so I was asked to talk about some of the challenges of this sort of program. Well, it's been alluded to a couple of times and with other presentations, but the fragmentation of the landscape, it really is a utopia for introduced predators. You've got all the food supply from the farmland and the refuge that's afforded by the bush. So, and with the fragmentation, there's a large extent of reinvasion. So as much as you can try and suppress the introduced predators, you create somewhat of a vacuum, and it allows newcomers to move in, and so the process starts all over. We've also had challenges with having multiple landholders. So we had about 25 individual landholders that we were providing the support to do the application processes as well for the various controls that we were going to use on those farms. Now, initially, we needed a separate application process for each landholder for using Eradicat bait. And so, as you can imagine, that's a lot of red tape to get through. We've been working with DBCA, and they've streamlined the process, and that bit, I can say, is improving. But we still need it for different species. So rabbits have a separate application process to foxes and cats. Felixes have a separate application to 1080 baiting. So, you know, there's perhaps still efficiencies that could be made. Farm operations hazards, working dogs. It's very hard to eliminate those from any baiting program in terms of a non-target. We've had a couple of incidents. I mean, we've been pretty vigilant. We've been compliant, but there's no winners in that. And unfortunately, it's very hard to absolutely minimize to a zero extent. So, you know, that's just something we have to guard against. And despite our best efforts and working with farmers, there's still been a couple of occasions. Someone mentioned also about farm operations, and cropping is a lot more predominant at the moment. So farmers sometimes crop right up to the fence line, and in our baiting and our monitoring, we're moving around the farms, we're driving around the perimeters of these paddocks, and if there's crop on the ground, we can't go in there, so we can't bait. That happened a little bit at the end of last year, just prior to harvest. There's things like wire, rocks, washouts. So there's all manner of obstacles. Gates, if they're sheep farming, there's a lot of gates to open and close. So these are just some of the things that just, you know, take time in your day. Weather is obviously a big one for all of us in various ways. Access, wet weather, we run the risk of getting bogged, but more importantly, being a very floristically rich area, we have to have strict hygiene protocols for dieback. And as Jez was mentioning before, with fires and things, and sometimes you get vehicle movement bans because of hot weather. So again, tools down and you lose a day's work. Rainfall can also affect bait longevity. Baits on the ground, especially the Eradicat baits, because they're a soft meat bait, can go mouldy. The 1080 can leach. So you really have to pick the eyes out of the weather and make sure you have a window of dry weather. And I mentioned before about prey availability with those all those kittens in that photograph. So 2021 and 2022, we had a lot of rain, above average rainfall for the area, and this just triggered a breeding cycle for many things, especially prey species like house mice, rabbits, pygmy possums, and in turn it fueled all the cat and the fox numbers as well. So despite our best efforts for control, those impacts were mitigated by much stronger drivers of population growth, namely the rainfall and productivity. And finally, challenge, is very difficult to demonstrate bait uptake by cats. And demonstrate, I mean, we had cameras on our tethered baits, and in 5 years, we had very few photographs of cats actually taking baits. We know they're highly individualistic. They're very very unpredictable in terms of their habits and their feeding. So, and of course, you know, they predominate on live prey. So a static bait isn't quite as tempting, perhaps. Next slide, please. Okay, just and this just alludes to the challenges we have of bait uptake. We're pretty lucky with non-uptakes. The only thing that we really struggle with are currawongs. I've given a name to my pain. It is the grey currawong, and you can see these are our tethered baits. So we have these gantries where we have a post and an arm, a bit of wire, and then the bait. And the currawong's very tenacious, very smart. Even if they can't reach them from the ground, they'll find a way to hang upside down on the arm of the gantry, or they do a flyby and pluck the bait out of midair. So we haven't really come across any sort of solution to that. So, but they have adapted to 1080. They do have some tolerance. So by looking at the activity of currawong, we don't seem to be impacting them. Next question, and next slide, please. Okay, so with the cat work, and we have had 80 monitoring sites to assess activity levels of cats and foxes. And it's not uncommon in these sorts of programs to struggle to demonstrate a downward trend in terms of activity. So in tandem to a monitoring program for cats and foxes, it's a good idea to have something for your target species, the conservation value that you're actually trying to protect, particularly if it's got a strong correlation with cat and fox predation. So not all the animals you can see on the screen are actually ones we have monitored. The Tamar wallabies, perhaps the only one we've had a dedicated monitoring program for. But I'm pleased to say we have seen them at sites we haven't recorded them before since the start of the project. Malleefowl on our Monjabup reserve, we've now got 5 known mounds in our restoration area. That's up from 2 when we first started, and we're seeing malleefowl commonly as we're driving around our local road network. So anecdotally, they seem to be a success story. The Chuditch there, we had hoped, and I had great expectations that by the beginning of the project we'd start to see Chuditch. I just assumed that they were under-recorded and we'd start to see them. But 4.5 years in, and we still didn't get any Chuditch on any of our cameras, despite the millions of images that we generated. Next slide. But moment. Just back in July last year, we got our first record of a Chuditch on one of our reserves, and I'm pleased to say this has been followed by a number of other sightings on camera from different individuals with different organisations, including DBCA, have recorded them. So that's a great win for us. It was one of our flagship species that when we started out the project, we had sort of highlighted that as an animal we hope to see return to the landscape. So it shows an element of survivorship. We can't demonstrate breeding at this stage, so it's obviously an evolving space, and hopefully as we move forward we'll start to see them more commonly on camera, and hopefully see females and perhaps even young ones. Next slide, please. Okay, a bit incongruous to the general flow of the presentation, but I just thought I'd shoehorn in a couple of slides on technology, and that was part of the remit of this this session. So the Felixes, which you've seen before, have been used on a number of projects, and I have to say we've been pretty happy with them. We've had 5 units for the past 2.5 years, and we've had 64 cats and 84 foxes fired upon. So I'll pick my words carefully because they have been fired on. So the way that the machine works, it uses LiDAR and AI to positively identify the target animal, which is incidentally feral cats, but foxes are an accepted off-target animal. And then with the toxin on their fur, the idea is they ingest the toxin when they groom and perish that way. So the thing is, we can't actually say for certain just how many of these animals have succumbed and we've removed from the landscape. All we can do is record the number of targets, and that's obviously a knowledge gap, and there's research happening to try and sort of put more of an answer on the confidence levels of just what those fired on animals means. Next slide, please. So this one we started trialing last year, and this comes courtesy of the Feral Cat Management Grant, which we were fortunate enough to receive. And it relies on the idea of alerting when a trap has been triggered. So these are our leg hold traps that we use specifically for feral cats and to some degree foxes. And it's quite a labor-intensive activity, but this system uses magnets on the traps, and there's a change of magnetic field when the trap is triggered, and this sends an alert to your device. And it's great for a couple of reasons. One, it's much better for animal welfare issues. You can respond very quickly. If the alert goes off, you can jump in your car and attend to the animal in question. And also the second big benefit is that you can actually, in theory, have many more traps set than you can actually manage by manually driving around checking each and every trap, because you'd only actually respond to traps that you were alerted to. We haven't actually quite got to that stage yet, because it's still under animal ethics that we do physically and manually check. So it's a proof of concept where we've had some good results. Early indications are that where we have good connectivity and reception, the system is working well, and we've only had positive alert, i.e., there was an animal in the trap, or the trap had been triggered, whether there was an animal or not. So it looks as though it could be a good system for us to adopt long term. Okay, a couple more slides just to finish off. So this one's just an acknowledgement of some of the key partners, particularly for that first 5-year period. As I say, it was funded by Lottery West initially, and they're some of the key partners that were supporting us in this work. And then one more slide. And this is to acknowledge our current funding, which is through the Commonwealth Government's Saving Native Species programme. I mentioned it before. Fitzsterling is one of 20 priority places around the country that's been earmarked as a special place with high diversity but ongoing threats. So we've been able to use funding from that source to continue the work, but that finishes in June, I believe, of this year. So yeah, we'll have to see how we go from there on in. But I know Bush Heritage are firmly committed to this work, and whichever way it goes in terms of funding, we will still support it, and hopefully continue this sort of positive trajectory. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
No worries.
All right, I'll stop sharing. And to wrap up today, we have Elissa, and I just want to acknowledge that Elissa's joining us from State NRM, who is the funding body for the Feral Cat Management Grants. And just a quick bio for Elissa. She's been with the State NRM team for a number of years now, but before that has had a number of NRM roles in both the North Perth and Great Southern region. She's based down in the Great Southern region at the moment, and so she gets to enjoy and immerse herself in the environment, keeping that passion alive and kicking. Welcome, Elissa.
Thank you, and just want to say thank you to Warren for putting together such a great hot topic forum. I mean, I'm very lucky in my role that I get to connect with all of these groups anyway and hear about the wonderful things that they do, but I think definitely sharing is a big part of this process so other people kind of learn. So great opportunity. I'll just share my screen.
Thank you for also linking us all together initially.
No worries. While we're waiting for that to upload, because reception down here can sometimes be a bit up and down, on behalf of State NRM, I'd like to firstly acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, particularly the Menang people, where I get to live and work, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I will retry. It's just about to, there we go.
Perfect. Looks good.
Perfect. So as has already been mentioned, my sort of discussion or talk today will be about the feral cat management grants. As Corrin alluded to, we have another round coming up very shortly for 2026. And so I'll just be giving a bit of an overview of if you're keen and interested, and hopefully groups are, in applying, what that might look like. But also the program's been running now for a number of years, since 2023. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity. We've obviously already heard from some individual groups about what they've been doing, but just a bit of an overview of some of the program's achievements and to date. So the program runs for 4 years, so 2023 to 2026. There's a total of $2 million being funded overall. And for this 2026 round, there's $500,000 available. Now, these grants are a collaboration between DBCA and DPIRD, and it's been a great program to date. And it forms part of the larger West Australian feral cat strategy. And like the strategy, the grants are geared towards the 3 key objectives. So that's increasing the effective feral cat management to improve the conservation outcomes for native species, continual improvement of methods and technologies for feral cat management through research and development, and also to broaden social acceptability and awareness of feral cat management methods, which we're contributing to today, which is great. Some of the key factors or features that you would want to think about if you're going to apply for the grants is obviously you have to address one or more of the objectives. Each grant can be valued at a request of between $10,000 up to $250,000. And the program or your project can go for up to 3 years. The sort of activities that you can apply for range from on-ground works, research and development, and then also into the community capacity and awareness building for feral cat management. The assessment panel will look at the projects and prioritise community-based landscape scale tenure blind projects to reduce the impacts of the feral cats on the native fauna in priority species. And like has been mentioned before, unfortunately, domestic and stray cat management isn't eligible for funding under the feral cat management grants because it's quite specific. But I would just make a little bit of a note that the state NRM program's other funding, which is the community stewardship grants, you are able to apply for funding for domestic and stray cat management. So if you're looking to be a bit broader, I encourage you to go and have a look at that sort of thing. So as mentioned, regarding activities and what you've seen today, there's been funding geared towards the on-ground works of trapping, shooting, use of elixirs, eradicat baiting, and but there is other things like exclusion fencing. Monitoring obviously plays a large part of it because we do want to be able to demonstrate that there is change occurring and increasing the trajectory of our native fauna in those areas. In terms of who's eligible and who's not eligible, these are geared towards community, so incorporated not-for-profit organisations, but also LCDCs and local governments. But you obviously must have a branch in WA. You can't be a national body and not be here in WA. So then the others, like sole traders, profit organisations, and that sort of thing, are ineligible for this funding. In regards to how many projects can you sort of apply for, you can apply for as many as you like, but obviously be mindful that there is restriction of the funding to $500,000. So it will be looked at on merit, but yeah, we do have that limit. The other thing to be mindful of for these grants is there isn't sponsorship available. So if you're not incorporated, you would have to maybe look at teaming up with someone who is incorporated and they're the applicant. Before I get on to assessment, I will just mention that part of the grant process and the assessment is prior to you submitting your application. You need to basically give me a call or contact me, and myself and also someone from DBCA, we do what's called a pre-submission meeting. This is all geared towards helping and assisting groups and people navigate through some of the eligibility and things to consider, and it's just there to help you make the best grant application you potentially can. So everybody does it, so it's on a sort of a level playing field, but I think it's been really beneficial. We introduced that in the 2025 round, and yes, we'll be doing that in the 2026. So just be mindful, you do have to do that meeting. In terms of assessment, it's always good to know how is the assessment panel kind of looking at things. So as I mentioned before, we want clear methodology and activities towards one or more of the objectives. We want evidence of local community involvement in each phase of the project lifecycle, so it includes design and planning, implementation, and also that includes consultation with Aboriginal people. A reasonable and well-justified funding request that demonstrates value for money. This is public money, and so value for money does form part of the process. But also sound planning and ability to manage the project. So there on the slide, you can see some of the weightings that the assessment panel will look at that. In terms of the process, there is the assessment panel, which is made up of 6 people. It's a multi-agency and community panel, and that's chosen by 3 ministers. So it's quite a sort of a rigorous group with a broad skill set. In adjacent to that, we have the Feral Cat Technical Committee provide technical advice and information, and that gets shared with the assessment panel when they have a look at it. That's then obviously the assessment panel shortlists the recommended projects, and then that goes up to the Minister for Environment, who does the final who is approved or who is successful, I should say. So things to consider, once again, this has already been touched on based on by Corrin, but animal welfare, because we are talking about quite often the on-ground control, lethal control works. Be aware of the firearms legislation in WA, and as has been mentioned a number of times, obviously the policy with the 3 definitions of domestic, stray and feral. And so there is a link on the guidelines to that DPIRD policy, which outlines the 3 definitions to help you kind of navigate that space. And also our pre-submission meeting is a component of that, is trying to just help get an idea of where you're looking at. So rubbish tips, that's more towards the stray type things. So that's caught a few people out in the past. And also with your control methodology, sort of think about the size of the area that you're looking at managing. Different tools are more effective for different scale. So, and if you're unsure about that, I'm going to sort of say DBCA is great for giving advice, and obviously we've mentioned, there's been mention of other resources available online who can help with that. PestSmart, if you Google search that, that's sort of some national standard operating procedures, and that helps you sort of develop up your methodology if you're uncertain of the different control methods. So be aware of that. And also just think about, you know, you're planning towards the goals, which is the effective management outcomes. And certainly when you're putting your application together, it's all about telling the story. You know your area well, but like I said, we have 6 people from a range of different areas who won't necessarily know your area, so don't assume. Put it in. You can always add in a Word document if you hit your word limit, and also your work plan is a great way to add in additional information, particularly on what your methodology is there. So any questions, of course, you can reach out to myself or the state NRM team, and I'll give contact details for that later. But just going back to what have we done so far, and I think it's amazing when you consider the amount of funds, the scope of works that's been undertaken and the area that those works are undertaken as well. So to date, we've had from 2023 to 2025, 13 projects have been successful in funding. And down in the columns, we have the 3 different objectives. So you can see all of the objectives for one project or another are being looked at, whether it's technology, improving the outcomes, and everybody's doing a great job of sharing what their learnings are and getting information out there. So that's a really important part of these. In terms of where have the projects been located in WA, we have 2 projects that we would call sort of statewide. One was in 2023 with the WA Feral Cat Working Group, but also one we have for 2025 is working with the Australian Wildlife Conservancy, and they're doing some works taking blood samples from groups that are currently already undertaking feral cat control and building up a bigger and wider database on all that DNA genomic information. So if you are a group that is undertaking feral cat work, control works, and you are interested in contributing to that or being a part of that, please reach out to me and I can pass on that information, because the broader the area we cover with this project, the better the information and coverage will be. So in the very top right-hand corner, you can see up in the north of WA. So we have one project up there, which I'll talk about in a moment. And then in the middle there, there are a number of projects ranged over the Great Southern, Southwest and Midwest regions. A number of projects have multiple sites, so that's why there's more than 13 sort of points there. So we've heard from a number of groups that have already that have received funding. So I thought I would just touch base on a couple of other projects that have been either completed or are ongoing. Like I said, because some of the projects can run for 3 years, we definitely have some that are still continuing on from the very first year. But this is a nice communication one, The Perils of Ferals, great title, which was by Oyster Harbour Catchment Group. And this was all about broadening the awareness and working with a range of groups from school children up through adults, and sort of disseminating information in different ways, so workshops, event stalls, school incursions, producing signage, a cute little animated video, and posters and banners and heaps of media articles. So they reached over 210 participants and engaged with 28 organisations, and that's just in the sort of southwest area. The one up north is the aerial poisoning baiting by the Kurikura IPA to help protect the bilby up there. So they've undertaken aerial baiting in a 40,000 hectare area over 2024 and 2025. So they're doing extensive monitoring of the bilbies and also what's happening with the feral cats, and they're also capturing in that monitoring what's happening with the foxes as well. So I'm eagerly awaiting their monitoring report from 2025, but they've had great engagement with the ranger groups up there and liaising with the traditional owners who are coming, I think, more on board and are keen to see or be a part of any future sort of projects. So that's been very rewarding, I think, for all the groups involved with that. Looking at the sort of southwest area in the Scott Coastal Plain, which has some amazing native animals there. This one has just started up recently, and they're focusing on 3 properties in that area. And to date, just from sort of 1 year, they removed 10 adult cats with a further potential 20 from unborn kittens. So they've just started, so that's a good start. 30 cats sort of basically removed, and they're just starting to do their monitoring and moving into their second year of control works. So as a broad overview of kind of what we have achieved, and this is obviously a moving summary, but it's really great to just see how we're tracking and working towards those 3 objectives. So I won't go through it all, but and I'm waiting on a couple of reports that are just coming in for sort of 2025, but we've removed over 122 basically cats from our areas, and we've increased the size of areas that haven't had feral cat management work before, and continue to work on areas that have. We are trialling 2 technologies. And as I mentioned there before, 40,000 hectares area of aerial baiting. And importantly as well, we've engaged 74 stakeholders, numerous presentations, hundreds of people have been engaged in understanding about feral cat management and the control works, and hopefully become more comfortable with it and understand there's a lot of animal welfare that goes into these works, and everyone is very mindful of that. And yeah, so to date we've sort of had 42 applications, and we'll see what this next year brings. Yeah, so if you want to get a hold of us, that's our email address, and I know our landline hasn't, we've had quite a bit of difficulties with that, but I can confirm that it is up and running now. So if you do want to contact me, please let me know. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Elissa. Now we're going to throw out to the audience. Does anyone have any questions that they've written down for any of the presenters? Have a look. Chat.
I do, if you want to, Eve.
Oh, there's.
Okay, so this question is for Christine. Now, you said you were doing DNA sampling. What did you actually find, and what were you looking for with the DNA, or are you just building up a database there through the project?
So from the study that was done through DBCA, we actually had the information of where the cats were trapped, and then looking at the DNA, we found that there was a feral cat hotspot on the northeastern side of the woodland. And so that's got to do with the relatedness of the cat.
Yes.
And that then there was less cats on the western side, southwestern side, but they were moving down that way. So there is a study on our website, which is really interesting. So we use those results to go, okay, that's where most of the cats are. That's where we will do most of our control. So we found that really helpful. So we have been taking the DNA samples to hoping to repeat that study down the track.
So you could also see how far they're travelling and if they're interbreeding across the reserve on the other side of the reserve as well, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's, some of it went a little bit over my head, but to me the maps were really great to show that relatedness of cats and then those hotspots. It was really good to see that. And that definitely did help guide the management activities, and it was a definite hotspot on that northeastern area of Dryandra.
Cool. I've also got a couple of other questions for you, if you don't mind. So the 3 properties that you showed, how close were those? Yeah, how close were those properties to each other?
So 2 of them were directly adjacent to Dryandra. I don't know if you're familiar, but there's the western block is called Skeleton Block, and that's one of them is directly adjacent to that.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is, I'd be guessing, but 10, 15 kilometres away, and that's where the real hotspot is, and that's on that sort of northeastern side. And then the other one is further east still, so it's east of Poponity. So Dryandra does span across about 50 kilometres. So that one is not extremely close to Dryandra. It's within 15 kilometres, I think, but we have seen a chuditch there, which is quite far east for a chuditch, and it is sort of in between. We know that cats are moving through that property to go towards Dryandra.
Cool, nice. And sorry, one more. So you put in the chat about what the scientists found in the cat guts. So what did they actually find?
Oh, found all sorts of things. Pygmy possum. The strangest thing was a thorny devil, which I think would be very difficult to eat. But all sorts of native species, but then also rodents as well. So a bit of both. But it was a really there were loads of stubble quail in their guts and things like that. So it's very interesting to see what they had been eating.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Just wanted to say thank you to all the presenters for replying to all the questions in the chat as well throughout the session. That was really helpful, Christine and Bruce, and that was great. Chris, did you have any photos of that 10-kilogram cat as well?
Yes, I do.
Is it huge?
I saw the other photo of the cold cat, and I thought, they're big. Once they get over that 8 kilograms, they're very big. So we had seen a cat on the camera, and it was right on the boundary of Dryandra, and it was massive. It had that really muscular neck and the tail that you can just tell how big they are, and the contractor was like, that's a big cat, but then we got this 10-kilo one and it wasn't the same cat. So we know that there's still one that size out there as well. So you think that would have eluded, all the errata in Dryandra and the pest animal control that's going off reserve, and it's just getting away. So, yes, but in terms of that study I was talking about from Dr. Heather Crawford, she actually, one of the cats culled near Dryandra was 16 years of age, and it had recently had kittens. So they're old and they're healthy, and they're eating a lot of our numbats and woylies, unfortunately.
Wow. Over to you, Bruce.
You got me in now. On the topic of good photos, if anyone has good photos of cats with prey in their mouths or large cats in the bush or anything like that they would be happy to share, we're always looking for good imagery to use for our advocacy and talks. So if you are able to share that with us, we would greatly appreciate it. Please send them through. Be very helpful. With full acknowledgement, of course.
Of course.
Can I just say something?
Yeah, please.
Christine and Phil Harvey, Captain Castle, can I just say you're doing a really great job. Good on you.
Thank you.
Also, do you catch domestic cats as well?
No, throughout our project, we've never caught any domestic cats. So we have full community support around Dryandra, and people are very aware of the control efforts that are taking place. And yes, never got a domestic cat in a trap.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. Your work you're doing is fantastic.
Oh, thank you, Mary.
Cool. Anybody else? Jack, do you have any thoughts? Probably got quite a few. Not there. Okay.
I've got one more, Eve. Sorry.
Go on. No.
This is for Jenna. Now you said that there was no RBG in your area, and I know it's quite complex, the structure of an RBG, and it comes under the BAM Act. Just a question, is there a possibility to get one up and running? Or is the RBGs that we have now are the only ones we can have? So maybe just a broader question maybe to think about.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure what's possible and what's not, but it's just like, well, if you don't have one there, wouldn't it be great to actually have that government funding and that group behind that actually supports you all the way?
No, and that's absolutely something that we would love to see. This grant was written in 2020, and so those words were actually written in the grant, and we still haven't seen anything come about, which is, like we would love to see something in the future, but it is such a broad area with a lot of variation in environments, and like pests, like here where I'm from, we're dealing with, well, not where I'm from, but where I'm living now, we're dealing with feral cats, foxes, rabbits, whereas elsewhere in the same kind of region, we're dealing with like wild dogs or pigs that we don't have here. So it's hard to find some common ground because we're all dealing with separate issues in regards to pests. I mean, we're all working towards the same thing at the end of the day, but yeah, it's definitely something up for discussion.
Absolutely. I just thought if you could have something like a local RBG, then the whole idea is that community-based group will be able to target those species, invasive species within your area that are particular to you. So just a thought and an idea. I don't know how feasible it is or if it isn't even possible, but it was a thought that popped in my head when you said there was none.
No, yeah, for sure. That's definitely a question on everyone's mind, I think. Maybe next steps for sure.
And Jenna, Amanda asked, what are the next steps for smart traps for you guys?
So we have another deployment site, as I mentioned, on a landholder's property that has seen quite a few feral cats running around. So yeah, so doing some pre-surveillance before we set up that trap on that site. But as far as the trap as a whole, given that we haven't had much success with the traps, meaning we haven't caught any cats so far, definitely working on the trap. We've definitely had some like suggestions from experts and landholders who've had success with their cat traps. I know one landholder actually was able to be successful catching some feral cats by like putting like something to block like around, so it's not just wire so they can't see out or in. I think that helped them be successful, so potentially like lining the trap. And yeah, just making alterations, really working with Access Tech to try and catch some ferals and making it more appealing to them.
I guess the other thing, Jenna, you could do, and this you may have had this suggestion, is somehow having the trap passive, so you can somehow keep the doors open and allow animals just to get familiar with it. Maybe if there's a food item in there, and they, hopefully get more comfortable with it. But yeah, it's quite nuanced, those cage traps and trying to cajole things like cats and foxes, which are very wary, very sort of, kind of a bit phobic around novel and new things. But yeah, that's possibly a suggestion.
No, and that's a good idea. I actually haven't thought of that one, so that's great. But yeah, and I understand that cats need a while to get used to their surroundings, and yeah, it's unfortunate that the trap needs that open space to get the satellite connection there, because it would be nice to kind of hide it in some bush and kind of camouflage it a bit. But yeah, it's still a prototype, very much in the works. So I'm just happy to be trialing some new technology and
Exciting. Jack, are you muted? Oh, no. All good. Does anybody have any final comments or queries from the session today? Hey,
Well,
Jez.
yeah, I'd just like to say if anyone needs any ground shooting groups to be involved, give us a bell. It might be after May where I see some openings arriving, so we can probably accommodate some more shooting somewhere.
Yeah, awesome. We will pop your details in an email to all of the attendees. Yeah, I think the potential for using that drone technology and going along the creek lines and tracking specific animals as well, that's insane to hear.
Thank you.
Have a look. Jasmine said she's doing a PhD looking at what culled feral cats in the Pilbara region are eating, seeing how much prey competition they cause with a threatened carnivorous species in the area. I'll also pop that in the post event resources, so we'll see if anyone can kind of link you up there, Jasmine. But finally, just also wanted to say thank you again to all of the speakers and all of you attendees for joining us this morning. It's been such a fantastic session, sharing knowledge and sharing different experiences in different areas. I think the thing that stood out to me is just the multifaceted management approach, and also the tenure blind is just incredible. Everybody working on these same reserves from different organizations to manage this ultra destructive species. Yeah, like I've said, we will send out all of these resources post-session. All of those contact emails, get in contact with anyone from the WA Feral Cat Working Group or the state government if there's any extra queries you have. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone. It's been such a fantastic session.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, that was awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Have a good day. Bye.
You too.